Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into something really interesting.
Really interesting.
It's called Anchored VWAP.
Yeah, AVWAP.
AVWAP. Okay, so we're going to be talking about this. We're using Brian Shannon's book,
Maximum trading gains.
Maximum Trading Games with the Anchored VWAP. And
Great book, by the way.
yeah, and you know what's so cool about this book is that it's actually been endorsed by some really big names in the trading world,
Oh, yeah, like who?
like Thomas Thornton,
Oh, yeah.
Joe Fahmy, if you heard those
Oh,
guys.
yeah, they're big.
Yeah, so they're like, heavy hitters in the trading world. And they've both said really great things about this book.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting is that Brian Shannon didn't even invent VWAP.
He didn't?
No, but he's like the guy who made it, accessible for everyone.
Oh, so he, like, popularized it?
Yeah, exactly. Like he took this tool that, Wall Street was keeping secret, and he was like, here you go, world, use it.
Okay, so let's break this down for our listeners then. What exactly ISVWAP, and how's it different from AVWAP?
All right, so you know how everyone's always talking about dollar cost averaging?
Yeah.
Investing the same amount regularly to smooth out those crazy market swings. Well, VWAP is kind of like that, but think of it like dollar cost averaging for the pros.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It shows you the average price that the big players, the institutions, are paying for a stock, even when the price is bouncing all over the place.
So instead of just seeing the price, like, right now, we can see where the real buying and selling is happening.
Exactly. Now, regular VWAP usually just covers one trading day, but with AVWAP, you get to choose your starting point, your anchor.
Anchor, okay.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so powerful. You can analyze trends over any time frame you want.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it.
Yeah.
Well, why should I care about all this? I'm not some Wall Street hotshot.
Because AVWAP gives you a peek behind the curtain. It lets you see what those Wall Street guys are up to.
Really?
You see, institutions, they use these fancy algorithms to place their trades, and VWAP is a big part of that. Well, they're not like us. They can't just buy millions of shares all at once. It would totally mess up the market.
Right.
So they use VWAP to kind of blend in and get the best prices over time.
So if I can understand how they're using VWAP,
You can potentially see where they're going to buy or sell next.
whoa. That's like having a cheat sheet for the market.
It's not about just blindly following a line on a chart. It's about understanding the psychology behind the market.
The psychology.
Yeah, especially the psychology of these big players who can move the market with a single trade. Ken Griffin, the CEO of Citadel Trading,
Yeah.
he actually told Congress that almost every institutional trade is done using algorithms like VWAP.
So they're not just winging it.
No, they have a plan. And now you can see that plan too.
That's wild. So this VWAP thing, it's not just some random indicator. It's like the standard playbook for the big guys.
Pretty much. And by understanding their playbook, you can potentially ride their coattails, catch the wave.
That's awesome. All right, so far we've got the basics. VWAP is like a weighted average price. And with AVWAP, we can choose any starting point to see trends over different time frames.
Exactly.
But it's not just about the numbers, right? There's a whole psychology piece to this too.
You hit the nail on the head. The market is driven by people. And AVWAP can help us understand their behavior, especially the big institutions.
So it's like a window into their decision making.
Exactly.
Now, I remember Brian Shannon also talked about personal psychology in his book,
Yeah, he did.
like how our own biases can mess with our trading.
Oh, yeah, he even shared that story about his divorce.
Oh, yeah.
Remember his account got split in half, and even though he made like 50% gains afterwards,
Yeah.
he still felt down because he was stuck on that old balance.
I get that totally. I think we've all been there, letting our past experiences cloud our judgment.
It happens to the best of us. The point is, being aware of both market psychology and our own psychology helps us make better decisions.
So it's about keeping those emotions in check.
Exactly. It's about being objective, and AVWAP can help us do that.
Okay, I'm ready to get practical here.
Yeah.
How do we actually use AVWAP in our trading? What kind of strategies are we talking about?
All right, so the key is choosing the right anchor points. That's where Brian Shannon's expertise really shines. He breaks it down into three main categories: fundamental events, price-based events, and time-based events.
Okay, let's dive into those.
Let's do it.
I'm excited to see how this all works.
Me too.
Okay, so those anchor points sound really important.
Oh, they are.
Like they're the foundation for using AVWAP effectively.
Exactly. They give us a starting point for our analysis.
Right, a reference point.
Yeah. So let's start with those fundamental events.
Okay, like what kind of events are we talking about?
Think big announcements like earnings reports that blow everyone away.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe the Fed decides to raise interest rates,
Yeah, something that shakes things up.
Exactly. Those events can really shift market sentiment.
So if we anchor our AVWAP to one of those events,
We can see how traders are reacting to it in real time.
I see. So it's like a sentiment indicator specific to that event.
You got it. Now let's move on to those price-based events.
Okay, so these are times when the price action itself is telling us a story.
Exactly. It could be a breakout, a new higher low, even a gap in the chart.
Oh yeah, those gaps could be exciting,
They can, and they often signal a shift in supply and demand.
which ultimately drives the market.
Exactly. So let's say a stock gaps up huge on massive volume.
Okay.
That could mean there's a ton of buying power pushing it higher.
Could we use that gap as an anchor point for our AVWAP?
Absolutely. And then we have those time-based events.
Okay, those sound interesting.
They are, especially when we consider how institutions operate.
How so?
Well, think about it. Many funds rebalance their portfolios on a regular schedule.
Right, like quarterly or annually.
Exactly. So we have those week-to-date, month-to-date, even year-to-date anchors.
So by using those time-based anchors,
We might be able to anticipate those big institutional moves.
aligning ourselves with their activity.
Exactly. It's like riding the wave instead of fighting against the current.
I like that analogy. Okay, so we've got our anchor point set.
Now what?
What patterns should we be looking for in the AVWAP?
All right, so one of the most basic but powerful patterns is how AVWAP can act as dynamic support and resistance.
Dynamic meaning it's constantly changing.
Exactly. It's like a moving average, but it adapts to the market's mood swings.
Okay, so if a stock is trending up and pulls back towards the AVWAP,
That could be a good buying opportunity.
assuming the overall trend is still intact.
Of course. And on the flip side, if a stock is trending down and rallies up to the AVWAP,
That could be a signal for short sellers.
exactly. But remember, it's all about probabilities, not guarantees.
Right, no tool can predict the future with 100% certainty.
Exactly. It's about adding another layer of analysis to our decision making.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Now, Brian Shannon also talks about some more advanced patterns.
He does.
Like the pinch and handoffs. Those sound intriguing.
They are. So imagine a stock that's been consolidating for weeks, bouncing between a longer-term AVWAP and a shorter-term one.
Okay, I can picture that.
That's the pinch. And instead of just watching and waiting,
What do we do?
we set alerts above and below those AVWAP lines.
So when the price finally breaks out of that range,
We're ready to pounce.
I see. So the pinch helps us anticipate potential breakouts.
Exactly. Now for handoffs, imagine a stock in a strong uptrend.
Okay.
We have an AVWAP anchored to the beginning of that trend, but then the stock suddenly accelerates.
It's like it shifts into a higher gear.
Exactly. Maybe some great news comes out or something.
So what do we do with our AVWAP in that situation?
We set a new anchor point at that point of acceleration.
So we're not stuck with that original anchor point.
Nope. We adapt as the market evolves. This new AVWAP becomes our updated guide for entries, exits, and even our stops.
So it's like handing off the baton from one AVWAP to the next, always keeping pace with the strongest momentum.
You got it. And that brings us to those exciting market events, the gaps and short squeezes.
Oh yeah, those can be wild.
They can. And AVWAP can help us navigate them. Brian Shannon talks about how we can use it to analyze those gaps, those sudden price jumps.
Right, usually caused by some unexpected news.
Exactly. There are common gaps, breakaway gaps, exhaustion gaps. AVWAP gives us a framework for understanding them and trading them effectively.
So it's like having a compass to guide us through those unpredictable moments.
Exactly. And then there are those short squeezes.
Yeah, those can be risky, especially for retail traders,
They can. If you're on the wrong side of a short squeeze, it can be painful.
because the stock just keeps going up and up.
And you're forced to buy back those shares at a higher price just to cover your losses.
Ouch. So a short squeeze is when a heavily shorted stock starts to climb.
Right. And as the price rises, those short sellers get nervous,
They start buying back those shares to cover their positions,
which pushes the price even higher, creating a self-feeding loop.
driven by fear.
Exactly. And AVWAP can act as an early warning system. Yeah, it can help us spot where those short sellers are likely to panic and start covering.
That's valuable information.
Hmm.
So we've covered so much ground, from the basics of VWAP to those more advanced patterns and market events.
We have.
What else should we know about applying this tool?
One thing Brian Shannon really emphasizes is the power of multiple time frame analysis.
Meaning we should look at AVWAP on different time frames.
Exactly. Daily, hourly, even down to the minute chart.
Wow, so it's not just about looking at one time frame in isolation.
Nope, it's about getting a holistic view of the market
And why is that so important?
because it helps us confirm trends and reduce risk.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful. Could you give us an example?
Sure, let's say you spot a bullish setup on the daily chart. The AVWAP is acting as support. Everything looks great.
Okay.
But then you zoom into the hourly chart and see the price breaking down below the AVWAP on that time frame.
So we're seeing a conflict between the daily and hourly time frames.
Exactly. It suggests that the short-term momentum is shifting against that longer-term trend.
So it's a red flag.
It could be. It might be a good time to reconsider that long position, or at least tighten up those stops.
So it's about using those different time frames to cross-check our analysis.
Exactly. And to avoid those head fakes where the market appears to be moving one way but then suddenly reverses course.
The market loves to keep us on our toes.
It does. Now, all this talk about strategy and analysis.
I can't forget about risk management.
Absolutely. Brian Shannon is a huge advocate for risk management.
He is.
He emphasizes it throughout the book.
So it's not just an afterthought.
Nope. It's a core principle.
Yeah.
You can have the best strategies in the world, but if you don't manage your risk...
You can lose it all.
Exactly. He constantly reminds us to protect our capital.
And I love that he weaves that message throughout the book.
Me too.
Because it's so important. What I'm realizing is that AVWAP isn't just some rigid mechanical tool.
It's not.
It's more about understanding market dynamics and using this tool to gain a deeper understanding of what's really happening.
You're absolutely right. And here's another interesting point from the book. Shannon advocates anchoring the AVWAP to the IPO price for newly listed stocks.
Oh, that's fascinating. I've never thought of that. Why would we do that?
Well, think about it. When a stock goes public, that IPO price represents the market's initial reaction to the company.
Like their first impression.
Exactly. So by anchoring AVWAP to that point, we can see how the stock is performing relative to that initial assessment.
I see. So we're using that IPO price as a baseline.
Exactly. And it's especially useful in those early days of trading when there isn't much historical data to go on.
Right, because the stock is so new.
Exactly. And as the stock matures, that IPO anchor point can continue to be a valuable reference point.
Helping us understand how the market perceives the company's long-term prospects.
Exactly.
It's amazing how one tool, AVWAP, can provide so many different layers of analysis.
It is.
From short-term trading opportunities to long-term insights.
It's all about connecting the dots.
And understanding the forces that drive the market.
Exactly. And AVWAP gives us a unique lens for doing just that.
You know, it really is amazing how much we can learn from just one tool.
It is.
AVWAP. It's like having X-ray vision for the market.
I like that.
You know, seeing those hidden trends and patterns.
It's not just about the numbers themselves, it's about the story they tell us.
Right. And AVWAP helps us decipher that story.
Exactly.
So for our listeners out there, you know, the ones who are ready to start using AVWAP in their own trading, what are some key takeaways?
Well, first things first, AVWAP isn't some magic crystal ball.
Right.
No indicator can predict the future perfectly.
Of course not. It's all about probabilities.
Exactly. It's a tool to help us make more informed decisions.
Not some get-rich-quick scheme.
Definitely not. Now think back to everything we've talked about today. We've seen how AVWAP can reveal those support and resistance levels.
Yeah, and those pinch patterns that hint at potential breakouts.
Right. And how institutions use VWAP to execute those massive orders without rocking the boat.
Oh, and let's not forget about the psychology piece.
Oh, definitely a huge part of it. Remember we talked about how our own biases can really mess with our trading?
Like anchoring bias?
Exactly. And how AVWAP can give us a read on market sentiment.
It's like having another set of eyes on the market, always looking for clues.
I like that. So how can our listeners actually start using all this knowledge?
Yeah. Where do they begin?
Well, here's the challenge. Think about your own trading style and time frame.
Okay.
Are you a day trader making those quick decisions?
Or maybe a swing trader riding those intermediate trends.
Right. Or maybe you're a long-term investor focusing on those fundamentals.
Yeah, everyone's got their own approach.
Exactly. And once you know your style and time frame, you can start brainstorming those anchor points.
Okay.
What events or price levels make sense for your strategy?
So maybe it's anchoring to those big market-moving events.
Right. Or focusing on those price action signals like breakouts and gaps.
Or those time-based anchors to align with the institutions.
It's all about finding what works best for you.
Experimenting and seeing what clicks with your style.
Exactly. And don't forget Brian Shannon's book.
Maximum Trading Gains.
Yeah, it's a goldmine of real-world examples and practical tips.
It really is a fantastic resource.
It is.
Well, I have to say, this deep dive into AVWAP has been eye-opening.
It has.
I feel like I have a much better grasp on this tool now.
Me too. It's been great exploring this with you.
It has.
And I hope our listeners are feeling just as excited about AVWAP as we are.
I hope so too. So to everyone listening out there, here's our final challenge to you. Open up your charts, grab Brian Shannon's book, and start playing around with AVWAP. See how it changes your perspective on the market and helps you make those smarter trading decisions.
Absolutely. Trading is a journey, and AVWAP is a powerful tool to have along for the ride.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Happy trading, everyone.